Oh, there we are. We are live. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. It's Sunday and we have Coach Red Rochelle Strauss here with us. We will be talking about building great relationships today. And before we start, what I want to do is I want to actually I can post. Okay, we can post comments. So I want to just see on the phone if I can catch our live. So then when you ladies join, we can actually, oh, there we are. We can actually comment. So what I'll do, I'll enter. So then when you ladies join, we can actually, oh, there we are. Here. Hello. For everybody, there we go. Okay, so then this way I set up the comments. So then this way I'll see those who join us. Perfect. Okay, Rochelle. Well, thank you for agreeing to talk to us and help us build better relationship in life and in business. So to start, tell us a bit about your story and how you got to doing what you're doing, what you love now.
Yes. Well, I was divorced several years ago, and I had two young children, and I wanted to make a different life for them. So I started to learn better parenting skills and along the way, better communication skills with their father. That was sometimes challenging and sometimes not so challenging. And that journey from divorced single mother to children, to a parent of adult children led me to where I am today, where I'm coaching parents and communication.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So let's go to talking about the relationships, and I always find that really the basics and the cores of everything in life is very similar, right? So the core of the relationships, whether it's our family relationships or business relationships, or if we're working in a corporate world, and core, it's kind of the same. So tell us, what are those main principles to really so we can build strong and lasting relationships with people?
Well, I want to say empathy is a very important skill that and a core principle in every relationship. In family relationships, you would imagine that empathy is a little bit more easy. You can put yourself in that person's shoes. In a colleague or an employee or a coworker's relationship, one might imagine that having empathy is really difficult, but it's not, because we're all in the same boat. And if you can find a way to empathize with another person in their journey and where they're at, that's a really core principle in getting along with others. And then a second one that I would say is listening. Just listening for the purpose of understanding what the other person has to say.
Yeah, you know what? And I agree. It's the same even when you build the relationship with the client, right? Being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes, again, whether it's a family member that maybe you're trying to strengthen the relationship with the client, it allows you to look at their situation from a different perspective, right? And then when that person sees you doing it, you build their trust, and any relationship is really built on trust. So as you say, and listening for sure. Very often as human beings, I guess naturally we're wired to talk about ourselves and talk rather than step back and listen. So listening it's a great one. I love it.
Yeah, it's true. And listening for the purpose of hearing the other person is a key, as opposed to listening in order to create your rebuttal. It's a very different kind of listening, right?
Yes, I agree. And you know what? That reminds me of a quote of Stephen Covey. He says, listen to understand and not to reply, right? So first,
Right.
say listening to really, really understand the person. Okay, so from your experience, what are the most common kind of relationship distractors? What most often, destroys relationship? Hi, Nikki. Welcome. I see Nikki joined us. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you for joining.
One of the relationship destructors that I would say is silence or withdrawal, walking away from a confrontation. That doesn't necessarily have to be a confrontation, but walking away from a conversation or not responding leaves the other person just with the inability to communicate. And so you can't build a relationship if you're constantly withdrawing from all of the interactions. That's a huge one, I think. Do you see that in business as well?
Yes, you know what? It's first of all, sometimes, for my corporate background in a corporate environment, what I see is sometimes, in the name of not wanting to hurt somebody or wanting to be liked and so on, we sometimes don't say what, bothers us or what there is something. And when we withdraw, but what I've noticed is very often it just builds up the resentment. And to the point where it gets to the point where very little thing that it's usually minor causes explosion, right? And then the other person is surprised because it was so minor. They don't understand where that explosion is coming from. And then it's just harder to rebuild the strain when there's a lot of buildup, right? If it's something small that we can talk through, it's faster, it's easier, and so on. But as you say, that withdrawal, not being able to talk, it is destructive. Totally.
Exactly. Resentment is just the thing that builds from not being able to talk, not being able to empathize. It breaks down communication. That's so true.
So how can we overcome that, right? So if we're feeling resentful, something bothers us, if we don't have, I guess, practice, it's hard to say something. But how can we overcome that? What can we do to, get past that?
I think that it's important to look outside ourselves sometimes. Sometimes when we withdraw or we're upset about something that's happened that we're not talking about, it also triggers things from our past. And so you explode, and maybe the reaction is bigger than it should have been because you're bringing all that past resentment into it. And it's important to really stay present with that moment and don't it's hard for me to say exactly, so I'm saying don't allow the resentment to get there. That's really the key. But if you've allowed it to get there and now you're exploding, now what do? You want to be in a relationship with this person, so you have to be humble. You have to go to them and say, listen, I'm really sorry that I allowed it to get this way, but I'm noticing that I'm having some feelings of resentment over this. Can we talk about it? Can we be open about it?
No, that's a great advice. Thank you. Because sometimes just explaining how we feel, labeling that feeling, and not really, it's not us, right? It's not how we are as people. It's just in that moment, this is how we feel, and kind of putting it out there and saying how we feel. That also, I think, pushes the person to put it themselves in our shoes, and it kind of, that empathy kicks in, and we can, start the conversation going.
Right. And the key is it's not accusatory. It's I'm feeling resentful because I allowed this to get under my skin, or I'm feeling this way because I felt hurt in that situation. Not I felt hurt because you said this and you did this and you shouldn't have. As soon as you start doing the you and the you should, the conversation is pretty much over. It's going to be really hard to get yourself back to the point where that person is willing to communicate again.
Because that closes defensive mechanism right away. People close up, and then that's it. You're right. And then we need time.
Right. So I statements. I think that's going to be a good takeaway from this interview, actually. I want people to take that away. I statements.
Yeah.
Make it about you, like myself, so that I can open up and communicate with the other.
Yeah. I want to say hi, Julie. Thanks for joining and watching. Jasmine is here with us as well. So welcome, Jasmine. Thank you for joining. Rochelle. All right. So let's move on to the next kind of conversation. So we talked a little bit as to how improve the relationship, like why in the moment when we're feeling resentful and we want to, but we still want to do conversation. But what else can we do with a relationship that's maybe strained, but we do care about it and we do want to make it better and kind of, make it stronger and repair it. What can we do?
I suppose it depends on the type of relationship. When I was divorcing my children's father, it could have been very strained. I don't keep it a secret. He's okay with my saying that he was an alcoholic, and it made it really hard for us to communicate in the beginning. And so I would consider that a negative attribute that he had at the time, and it was not a very healthy communication at any time. And in that environment, I held my kids to a higher standard, and I said to myself, do I want to be focusing on the fact that he's saying what he's saying or doing what he's saying, or do I want to put my children in front and say they deserve a relationship with their father in a safe way? So I sat down with myself and I said, how can I accomplish this? And the reason I'm telling you this part of the story is because I used to take them to see their father, and if he was drunk or not drunk, I didn't worry about it. I waited there so that I knew that they were safe. They were spending time with him in a controlled way, and then I would drive them back home. So I knew he wasn't driving them drunk or anything like that. What that did was that gave him a sense of respect for me. And we were able to get out of the toxicity part of it. We preserved the important part, which is relationship. And then over the years, when he got sober and he got healthy, my children had a great relationship with their father, which was my end goal. And I have a great relationship with him, even though the two of us have moved on in our relationships. We're both remarried. And so the takeaway from that story is, what's more important to you? Is it important to focus on what's wrong, or is it important to focus on what's right?
Yeah. No, that's that's a great story. I'll just say hi to Samantha. Samantha is watching us as well. Welcome, ladies. That's that being that bigger person, right, and taking the higher road, just like you did, is definitely not easy in the moment, right? When there, as you say, when there is a lot of resentment, when there is, and that applies really to any situation, family, life, like again, work, sometimes team, if you have a team, sometimes it happens, right? Even with the client, when there's conflict, and taking that higher road, being a bigger person is not easy, because when the emotions kick in and we're angry and we're resentful, it's very hard to pull yourself out of it and do it. But in a way, doing what's right down the road pays so much better, right? I agree.
Right.
Sometimes thinking the moment and thinking, okay, well, in 5 years, if what I want to do now, how am I going to feel about it, right?
Right. And sometimes that's really hard. Sorry. Sometimes
go ahead.
Sometimes that's really hard to do when you're in the moment.
Yeah.
So take yourself out of the moment. So I would just want to give some sort of practical, I'm saying just do it. Just step out of it. But what does that mean? What does that look like in practical steps?
Yeah.
I'm a big journaler, and I believe every morning I set my intention for the day. I write down what my intention is, how I want to treat people, and some goals that I want to create for the day and how I intend to meet them. I also journal gratitude. I'm thankful for certain things in my life. And if a person has somebody who's toxic in their professional life or in their personal life, so long as it's not dangerous, then set the intention in your journal. If you're writing, that's one example of of a tangible thing that somebody can do, is set the intention that you're going to create one positive interaction with that person today. And you're going to set aside the resentment and the toxicity. In a coworker situation, I just want to throw like a random example out there. If somebody's like gossiping behind your back, You don't need to have an interaction with that person or give them more fuel to gossip more about you.
Mhm.
You can even confront them in a professional way. Like, I understand that there are some things that you're saying about me, and
Mhm.
I would like to talk to you about them. Maybe there's
Mhm.
something that we can air out together.
Yeah.
Maybe there's
Yeah.
room for that.
Yeah. No, that's great. I will just read a couple of comments. Hi, Nana. Hi, Monica. Welcome, welcome. So Jasmine is saying, and focus on what's working out for me. It's much easier than focusing on the other stuff. And it's really great, Jasmine. Thank you for that
Yes.
advice. It's really great. And then Nana says, the most amazing coach, Maggie, helped me in shaping my business, especially my meetings with my team. It's working. I recommend her to anyone struggling with the so, yes, relationship with the team and relationship, can be as hard as family. We say that, family you don't choose and it's not easy, but sometimes at work it's not
Right.
great either. And as you say, you know what? I will come back to the journaling. I love journaling myself. I use journal for many different uses as well for gratitude and so on. So the way that I like the intention part. This is something I'm not doing yet, but maybe I'll steal that idea from you.
I've inspired one person today.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. Like setting the intention for the day. I don't know, Julie, if you're watching, I wanted to ask you because I know Julie journals a lot as well. So Julie, what do you set intentions for the day? I'm actually curious to know how you're doing. But then one thing that I learned as well, somebody I don't remember who told me, it's also even doing an affirmation. So when we do affirmation for ourselves, for our health and so on, picking one person whose maybe relationship we have strained or maybe is kind of affecting our life negatively, and every day doing one quick affirmation for them, kind of wishing them health and all the best. Not necessarily, like as you say, there's some relationship we might not want to be in, but just wishing them the best, taking that higher road, it helps as well.
And I think by wishing them the best, I'm not sure exactly what you meant. I think what you meant was just to yourself, because sometimes you can't express that to the other person
Yeah,
without it
yeah,
coming off as arrogant or
yes,
something else.
yes,
So
yes.
it's just within yourself, like just wishing them the best and
Mhm,
happiness and health. And if you verbalize that, you're putting it out there.
mhm,
And something could
mhm.
change just energetically. It could
Yeah,
change.
that's exactly, thank you. What I
Yeah.
meant. So what Jasmine says, I do the intention and gratitude list too and journal all the time and fill up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very, very helpful thing. I recently picked it up again. I stopped doing it for a little while. And every time I stop the journaling, I notice a little bit of chaos creeps in
Mhm.
or a little bit of fear and anxiety. As soon as I start journaling, it's as if I'm talking to myself. I'm giving myself a pep talk every morning.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really helpful.
It does. It does. Like, hi, Gail, affirmation. So I start the day off. And Jasmine starts the day with affirmation. Hi, Gail. Yes, journaling is very powerful. I also recommend always to my clients. I give them even exercises once a week for
Yeah,
certain things
that's
in
great.
journaling because it is powerful. So we've been talking about a bit about negative and toxic people. So how to a little bit more about how to deal with people like that in our lives. So if we have negative people in our life, how can we, deal with them?
So sometimes it's
Mhm,
better not to.
mhm,
There are some people in our lives that it's better for us not to communicate with them. So that's
mhm,
also something. I know I talked earlier about withdrawal and silence isn't healthy. And that's with somebody that you love, that you care about, that you
mhm,
interact with.
mhm,
But sometimes people hang on to toxic relationships for too long,
mhm,
and it's not healthy. If I didn't have children with my ex-husband, I mean, he's a really nice guy. I'm not trying to badmouth him. He's my experience, and he's really a nice guy, and I have nothing bad to say about him now. He's done all the right things. But if he never got sober, and if I'd never had children with him, then it's time to just say goodbye.
mhm, mhm,
And I wish him well. And I could send affirmations his way. that I wish him health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't turn out that way. It turned out everything best outcomes for us. And I think that's also something really important when somebody's interacting with somebody who has narcissistic behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a diagnostician, so I'm not diagnosing anybody, but if somebody has narcissistic behaviors, that's just really hard to go up against.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not worth it to save yourself. You need to step back.
Yeah.
And find a way out of that relationship if it's possible.
Yeah, and I agree that, it's sometimes it's hard because it's people we like or people who are somewhere related to us or whatever, even at work. But I agree that there are relationships, if they're negative, they're draining you more than really provide the energy and then affecting us negatively. It's better to cut them, and then surround yourself with people who are actually supportive, right? And bringing positive energy.
Right. I mean, you bring up a good point. If it's a coworker, you don't have, and they're on your team, you don't have a choice but to communicate with them, but you can limit your communication with them.
Exactly.
You can find a way to communicate with them, maybe electronically instead of in person on your project. You can find a go-between in a professional way. I think that there are ways to deal with toxic people if they have to be in your life.
Yeah.
And
I'll add to Nana if she's watching, because she's a leader in her organization. So as a leader, if you have a toxic person and you try to work with them and that doesn't change, you do need to let them go. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because otherwise they'll bring down the other team with them. The atmosphere will be corrosive, and then in a way you might actually lose your best people if you keep the person in. So for the betterness of the team, it's actually necessary to let such a person go. If they're not willing to change, even if you're there to help them and support them, at some point, and
absolutely. And it's not bad. It's just that person may not be toxic in another environment. Maybe they need to be set free in order to find their healthy place. That's very true. In professional environments.
Yeah. Jasmine says everything, even tough, it's a daughter too. Yes, sometimes.
Say that again. I didn't hear.
Jasmine says, even tough, it's a daughter too. So I'm not sure, Jasmine, if you're referring to like a toxic relationship with a daughter.
Oh, yes. That goes back to my experience with like an alcoholic. If your child, your daughter or your son is using drugs or alcohol, if this is an adult, I'm talking about an adult relationship, because if it's a child, you're required to take care of them and to make sure that they're safe and healthy and everyone in your home is safe and healthy. So if you have an adult child and they're using drugs or they're acting in destructive ways, it is not your responsibility to enable that. And it's not your responsibility to contribute to that. So, for example, if you have an adult child, let's say they're, 29, 30 years old, you're an adult, and that 29, 30-year-old keeps coming to you for money and you don't have it. That's not a healthy relationship. It's not. And the parent, in this case, would have to set some very clear boundaries around that. And it's so much harder when it's a child. I have adult children, and thank goodness I don't have these huge issues with them. But I have minor issues with them where they don't want to tell me something, and they have every right not to. They're adults. They get to have a life without telling me, and then I feel hurt. You're excluding me. So we have those. Those are not necessarily toxic, but they're not happy situations. And in order to get out of those unhappy situations, we have to call each other and we have to say, I love you and I don't want to talk about this topic with you. I want to talk about this topic with just my husband or just my sister or just my brother. And as an adult parent, you have to accept that.
And Jasmine says yes, it's her daughter, and she's 28. So Jasmine, maybe we have a bit of time. If you have a question to Rochelle, just type it up, or you can always connect after. But let us know. But you know what? Like I would just say one example of my friend who has a little girl, and she was separated with the father of the girl. But it's been a couple of years, and the father really stepped up and so on. And she's getting back together with him. And she decided, it's hard to be a single mom. It's really, she's working, she has a demanding job. And unfortunately, her mom doesn't support that. So now, not only, it's hard for her to just even, it's stressful, right? She still needs to move and try to work the relationship out. But now she has that conflict with her mother who doesn't support. And for me, that's tough because as parents, and I'm as much as I understand the mom's concern, at the same time, her daughter is an adult and she's making choices, and she is responsible enough to know that if that doesn't work out, she'll still need to, make decisions.
Yes, that is such a tough situation because when the daughter separated from the mother, she told her everything that was wrong with this guy and why he's horrible as a husband and why he shouldn't be in her life. And mothers hold on to this. So be careful what you tell your mothers. Mothers hold on to this. And so she moved on. This reminds me so much of advice. When I first got remarried, a marriage counselor said to me, I'm very close with my mother and I love my husband. So what she said to me was, every time you get into a fight with your husband, a disagreement, an argument, don't tell your mother, because your husband's going to bring you flowers and you're going to make up and everything's going to be wonderful. But your mother didn't get flowers and he didn't make up with your mother.
That's the good advice. I like.
That's what that's about. So with your friend, it's her mother loves her, cares about her, wants her to only have love and happiness and connection with her husband. But her mother is angry about all the things that she told her that he did. So now she's got to repair that with her mother. And it's going to take time, because I'm a mother of adult children who are married. One of them's married, and it's something you have to repair.
Well, I'm going to tell her that tomorrow. So Jasmine says, one day will be okay, just not right now. I have fun visualizing the future currently. All right. Well, I wish you, Jasmine, that, you be able to have a better relationship with her. Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Welcome, welcome.
And I love that Jasmine said that in the future, I hope to have a relationship with her, because this is a perfect time when it sounds like she may not be communicating with her daughter, and maybe that's the healthier space to be in right now. And she can journal her intention for her daughter, or she can say affirmations about her intention for her daughter and her relationship. And then when the time is right and they're able to, in a healthy way, come back to communication, then her heart will be in the right place.
Well, I will, before we finish, if anybody has any questions, please let us know. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. I tried hard not to talk about anyone in the bad light. And that's a bigger person, Jasmine. That's good. You don't want to talk about, as you said, like as the other parent in front of your children bad, or, people who, even coworkers, in front of others bad. Like that's not something you want to do, because that creates just negativity and more toxicity.
Right.
And we want to avoid that. But I'm not sure, because as people were joining, so maybe again, Rochelle, just tell us about what you do, who you help, who are your clients. If there's anybody interested, they can, reach out. Rochelle is part of our group, of course. So, she'll be happy to connect with you.
Sure. I'm accessible in the group. I'm Coach Red, and I help parents mostly, and people in relationship, to help them communicate better. And I help parents create more loving environments in their home and more gentle and safe places for kids to communicate their issues with their parents. So in all, I'm a parenting coach.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jasmine, and thanks million for tonight. Also, Rochelle, thank you very much. So maybe when we post the video will be posted, but maybe share your links to your pages since one in the comments, and then people can, look as you or, reach out to you there if they need any help. But thank you. It's been great. I really appreciate this talk. And then,
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
yeah, and everybody has a fantastic evening tonight. And then see you in the group tomorrow.
Okay, have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.